Thank you, Anthony. Yes, I do have a special guest. I am alongside Kevin Hill today for this episode of On the Spot on August. October 20th. I look down, see 10:20, and I say August. All right, but it is Wednesday here, so it's on the spot time. Kevin, just let's stick with Zach's last point there. What do you think? What do you think about that? He has said, even if there is a slowdown, which there's no guarantee that there is coming out into Q1, it's typical that we have a seasonal slowdown. But let's just say we have a typical seasonal slowdown. Are you expecting rates to fall as fast as they have risen?
I am. Yes, I would.
You expect things to kind of turn over. His point was that he thinks that even when, if there is a turn, that these rates, that carriers are going to try to hold on to these rates as long as possible, and they're not going to see them fall as fast as they've.
I think they're going to fall faster than we think, maybe, but maybe not as fast as they've risen over the last. It depends on the slowdown too. If it's a normal seasonal slowdown, that's a little bit less, about the same magnitude. Yeah, if it's a turn, then I don't know.
Yeah, I guess there's two sides of this equation, right? We have to, one, demand has to ease, and then two, we also have to get some capacity added, there are factors that are keeping capacity off the market that have nothing to do with demand, that have to do with the supply chain of building trucks, and have to do with getting the CDL issuances back up, and getting drivers training schools back up to full capacity. So there are constraints on capacity that may not work themselves out until later on next year.
Yeah, I think when you saw 2018, you saw trucking rates, line haul rates rise from the dual hurricanes in late 2017 through, probably midway through 2018, and you saw capacity flood in because there's no restrictions to capacity really flooding in, people expanding, drivers coming into the market in 2018, but you do have real challenges bringing any capacity whatsoever into the supply chain or the economy right now.
Yeah, carriers are in a weird position where they know that if they add too much, it's just such a delicate balanced line. It's like, let's make hay while the sun shines and keep capacity low, or we can expand our fleet and try to take advantage, but we might not get the same rates that we do right now. So it's a lot going on. But
I think if carriers could expand their fleets right now,
you think they would?
That they would, yeah. I think they would. It's the traditional pattern of boom and bust cycles in all industries, but I think there's, as you pointed out, there are some real challenges in expanding those fleets.
It's a good point because I think Bill Priestley and I spoke the other day about what has surprised me over the past year or past year and a half during COVID, and it's been like the undisciplined capex that we typically see in this industry. We haven't seen it because they haven't been able to get the trucks, haven't been able to get the drivers, haven't been able to expand the fleet. We've seen them increase wages, pretty significantly here. That's a sign to me that they're having trouble seating these trucks. And you listen to the earnings calls, they're all saying labor is their number one issue right now on the carrier side.
Yeah, it's not a question of wanting to add more capacity.
It's an ability.
It's the ability to add more capacity, and that's where the real hang-up is right now.
All right, well, let's see how this is playing out into a couple sonar charts here. So the first one I've got for you is we're looking at the difference between inbound and outbound tender volumes into one of our nation's biggest areas, the area that's driving most of the port activity right now. That's LA and Long Beach. So this is looking at Ontario and LAX. So green line is you're looking at the outbound tender volume index out of Ontario. Blue line, outbound tender volume index out of LA. And then the purple and orange are the respective inbound tender volume indexes. Basically what you're seeing here is that we have a 43% difference between inbound and outbound tender volumes out of those two combined areas, the Inland Empire and LAX. What this leads to is way more freight coming out of LA than there is going into LA. And if we go on to the next chart, you can see the difference in rates. We just picked one lane here. This is Dallas to LA. It's kind of the most noticeable here. This is our 2-year chart, so comparing to basically November of 2019. Dallas to LA, about down 6%. LA to Dallas, up 170% over the 2 years. So this is a truckstop.com spot rates as well. So just to kind of show the dislocation in the freight markets, we don't think that it's going to get any better anytime soon, especially given our now even higher reliance on Asian imports and e-commerce and things coming from West Coast. So
I think you saw the same thing in Laredo back in the mid-teens, right? Where it was hard to cover loads out of Mexico. I take that back. It was easy to cover loads out of Mexico. Northbound was very manageable. There's a lot of a good balance in traffic going southbound and northbound in and out of Laredo, whereas now over the last few years, everyone's desperate to go southbound. Everyone's desperate to go from the Midwest to Laredo because there's always loads in Laredo right now. it is a jackpot, right? So you're kind of seeing that with LA. It kind of reminds me of what the LA market is right now. Everyone wants to get positioned in LA because the rates are so good coming out that they'll take, it becomes a backhaul lane going into LA.
Yeah, I mean, this is something Zach Strickland has written about ad nauseum over the past few weeks, showing the whether it be the inbound tender reject index into the West Coast, it is half of what all the other regions are, or you look at any of the prices that the carriers are pricing themselves into, they want to be in LA. That is where the freight is. They understand that they can get an 800-mile trip out of LA at $3.50, $4 a mile, and that is good money.
Yeah, and that's where you're trying to position all your trucks is on the West Coast, because that's where the money is, that's where the boom is, that's where you can get a lot of miles coming out. So those rates are spread along a great trips coming back, but it's getting those positions back in. And you see a lot of carriers right now positioning themselves, trying to find that freight out to the West Coast, build a deadhead in there at will to pick up those high rated freights.
Yeah, we still got a battle of two coasts going on, right? The LA is as hot as it's ever been, but we still got Savannah pushing out record volumes. We've got New York, New Jersey putting out high volumes as well. So there's freight coming in on all corners of the country.
There is, yes.
All right. Well, that has been it for this week's episode of On the Spot. We'll be back next week, the same time Wednesday, about 10 o'clock in the morning, right here on FreightWaves Now.